And welcome back, and hopefully you're having a good day thus far. If you're watching these videos in series, to recap the previous video, we just went over a bit of a pre-start fluid check, if you want to call it that, in which we added fluid to the power steering reservoir as it was empty due to having it removed, having it cleaned, put the rest of our braking oil into our crankcase, topped off the transmission, gave it a little bit of extra fluid to account for the torque converter, new line set, and new transmission cooler, and also filled our cooling system. Now, the one item that we haven't addressed yet, and we'll address that once we get through the initial startup and verify that we don't have any issues we have to backtrack on, and we'll combat it a little bit later, but eventually we will get back to purging and filling the AC system, but that'll be its own video. That'll come separately. What we're working on today is at least doing a power up of the truck at this point. We'll do a code scan on it to verify and see if it comes back. Well, actually, A, to verify hopefully there's no issues, and B, to see if it's flashing any codes for basically sensors that we've forgotten to connect or connected but not connected all the way. Basically wanting to see if the ECU during its quick power on self-test that it does when you turn the key to the on position, not start but on, it will do a cursory check of some of these sensors like cam, crank, this inlet air temperature sensor, looking for the presence of a hood latch, things of that nature, things that it knows are there. It'll do just kind of a quick check for, which is one of the reasons why we wanted the headlights installed before we did this. Not that it would have affected anything as far as us flashing the vehicle, but it would have just been a little bit annoying because the dash would constantly ding at us and say, hey, I see all these bulbs as being out, when in fact they're not. They just weren't there. So what we've done first is we went and got a brand new container of Angry Pixies. And this is an AGM version of a battery. Basically just means that instead of having liquid sloshing around a bunch of lead plates, it has a glass mat that is wrapped around your lead plates, in which that mat is then saturated with your electrolyte. So it's not as slushy as a traditional battery. It is also an AGM, as you can see, and you'll notice it says H7 is the type, and that is the same equivalent as the battery that came out of here, which I believe was a 9R or an R9, one of the two. It basically means the same thing. The reason why this is an H7 instead of the other number is that the H7 is still the same size dimensionally as far as height, width, and the sides, the positive and negative posts on. It just means the characteristics of the battery are different. So this battery has a higher cold cranking amp number than the traditional battery that would go in here. And like I said, I apologies, I'll look it up and I'll add text to the screen, but like I said, I think it's like an R9 or a 9R, one of the two. It means the same, kind of the same thing as an H7. Again, H7 had dimensionally is the same as that battery, just a little bit different battery characteristics. What we want with an AGM on this one, because I typically like to go with either the AGM or the lithium. However, the lithium car batteries are still a bit pricey. The other nice thing about the AGMs is that battery, although you're not really supposed to do it, you could take that battery and kind of flip it on its end or flip it on its side, and you're less likely to spill electrolytes out of that like you would a typical battery, you know, just in case type scenarios. So the first thing we need to do is get this reservoir tank of Angry Pixies into our battery tray, which we did scrub down a little bit and wipe down with some cleaner and also vacuum, because it did have quite a bit of dirt accumulated in it, so it looks a bit better than what it did. We also have one of these battery chargers that has a power supply function, so once we get the battery in here, we'll hook it up to the vehicle, verify, just do a quick smoke check, make sure that we don't see or smell something that shouldn't be happening. And then we'll put the battery charger in power supply mode. That way we get nice, consistent, even, clean power. Even though we got a new battery, but just in case, it'll keep the power supply consistent while we're doing our code reads and eventually reading the configuration off the truck that we'll eventually send to the tuner. So let me get this battery hoisted up into here, and then we'll just secure it down with its original battery tie down, and then I'll bring you back. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, you can see we've got our tank of Angry Pixies mounted in, with the secure block and tightened. I did shoot a little WD-40 on that bolt and the nut because it was getting a bit rusted, just to help protect it. Now, before we apply power and wake our patient up from the very long slumber that our patient has been in since the start of this procedure, we went ahead and removed, as we were talking about in the previous videos, the fuse to our fuel pump relay. So it may click, it may still try to engage the relay, but it's not going to send power to the fuel pump, because again, we do not want that fuel rail pressurized, at least just yet. We also disconnected the control wire on the starter for the solenoid, so even if something does try to start this truck, it won't engage the starter, let alone try to spin it. So again, we're going to start to wake our patient up here, but we still want a little bit of control over exactly what our patient can do. So we've got our positive cable already attached and tightened down. As you can see there, nice and secure, not going anywhere. And of course, we're putting a battery in, so we're doing positive first and then followed by negative. And I'm gonna make this next statement, and I'm not saying that everyone doesn't know this, but just in case we have viewers to the channel that haven't done this before, the reason why we're doing positive first and then negative when putting the battery in is that if you're tightening this terminal and you come in contact with the body, let's say this little tab right here, no harm, no foul. Negative goes to ground, ground goes to the vehicle. You're just connecting between here and here, so you're not liable to cause an issue. Now, if we were doing this in reverse and we connected the negative cable first and we're over there ratcheting on positive, and we come in contact with something in the vehicle, then we could cause a short, which would be a bad thing. So if we were taking the battery out, we would be doing this in reverse. We could take the negative cable off first. That isolates the battery. And then as we're taking off the positive, if we happen to touch something on the vehicle, since the negative's removed, we're not going to short across anything. Anyway, with that little bit of safety note said, we're just going to, now we're going to see some sparks here because, you know, we've got computers in our power up, we've got capacitors and other devices that are inside those computers that are also going to pull in an initial charge and hold on to it. That's in their nature, that's what they're supposed to do. What we are looking for is obviously to see or smell something that we shouldn't be seeing or smelling, which in that case will immediately just disconnect it. So I won't tighten this down right away, but we will put it over the post. So a little bit of sparks there, not too bad. Not seeing or smelling anything odd. Good deal. So I'm just going to slip it over our negative post for now. Again, we're loose, but we're not tight. But again, we're just looking for anything to happen that should not be happening, aka the smell or sight of anything getting too hot. So what I'm going to do briefly is just open up the driver's door here, and although that connection's not the greatest, yeah, we got enough of a connection there. We can see our mileage and our cluster and everything starting to wake up. And so far, no harm, no foul. Also, and I forgot to mention this, I do apologize, we do have the Banks equipment unplugged at this point for the initial scan as well as the code read to send to the tuner. We're going to leave Banks disconnected until we get those two steps complete, and then we'll come back and plug the Banks in the OBD2 port, and then we'll see about getting this configured. And when we get to that section of the video, you'll have to forgive me a little bit because this is going to be new. So we're going to have to kind of fumble our way through and navigate what we need to do to get this screen set up the way we want. what we're looking to have is the PedalMonster screen with two sensors here on the side, one for our boost, one for our fuel. At least initially, that's what we're looking for. And there'll be a setup that we have to do on here to tell it what type of engine it's installed into. And of course, there'll be a calibration that we have to run for the PedalMonster itself. Okay, so far so good. Everything's looking okay. Let's see if we can use the key fob to do an unlock. And we can. You can see we've got lights. Okay. Good deal. Those headlights should turn off here in a moment. So good. We've got connectivity to the truck. We've got our wiring squared away for our lights. We're not seeing anything abnormal that we weren't expecting to happen. I think at this point, yep, lights are out. At this point, we can go ahead and just tighten up our negative battery post. I'm just holding the other end of this carriage bolt just so until we get enough friction on here to get this to ratchet. You can see that just previous attempts at tightening this negative cable that they've kind of gone a little bit too much torque on it, because you can see how those two halves are touching. Now the nice thing about this one is one of the older cables, so we can get just this terminal piece and easily replace it, which I may end up ordering. Okay, that's got it. That's pretty secure, but I will look into getting a new terminal on there, just because, like I said, that's starting to get a little bit of wear on it. Now that we've got that done, let's get our battery charger plugged in, and let's get ourselves set up on power supply mode. It's a relatively new battery. It's got a sticker of 1223 on it, if you want to trust that, but no telling how long it may have sat at the factory after it was charged. Yes, the battery charger's blipping error at me because we don't have it connected. There you go. That made it happy. And if you want to believe, however, it's calculating that based on voltage, but it thinks the battery is about 80% charged at this point. But what we're going to do is come in here and set this to power supply mode. Hit our start button. And now it'll keep a constant voltage and current on that battery for us. So that way we don't get any weird stuff in our readings. Let's see. So let me get this scan tool ready to go. Let me get this plugged in, get everything set up out here, and I'll bring you back, and then we'll turn the key to the on position, and we'll read some codes out, and we'll see what we got. So one moment. And welcome back. A little bit of a glare, but I've got you zoomed in. Let me see if I can get you a little bit closer. Let's see what we got. Let's do a system scan. I did read the VIN number. It is communicating with the truck. The truck is telling us that we have low washer fluid, but we come to expect that since the tank is empty. So there we go. Now it's reading through the various systems. It sees PCM, ABS. It's seen a lot of modules. That's a good sign. And heated seat module. Okay, awesome. The good news is that it sees a heated seat module, so it hasn't lost any of the programming that we did with the Alpha OBD software, with the battery being disconnected as long as it was. Okay, I don't want to clear any DTCs yet. So now that we got our scan, let's see, I'm going to go, so what you saw me do was just go back a level. Now I'm going to do let's do a smart detection. That's right, a smart detection. Okay, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. So you see we got battery low codes in some of these modules. Barometric pressure out of range, low. Okay, I'll explain what that is. What this is, and the reason why, and I'll show you on the dash as well, the dash is kind of unhappy with us right now with one aspect. It's reading the new MAF sensor that we installed per the procharger kit, but remember, it hasn't been flashed, so it expects to see the sensor range or the sensor feedback from the factory one. So that's why it's kind of getting a little bit mad right now. Lost communication with left side satellite sensor number 4. It's stored. And you see a lot of these are stored on the other side over here. So the only one active right now is barometric pressure. Stored. Battery low, understandable. Stored, more stored. ECU reset recovery complete. Battery low, lost communication. And this is normal. This heated seat module, if you remember when we did the modification, we took in the heated seats, but we elected not to do the heated steering wheel. Well, the heated seat module gets a little perturbed because it was programmed to utilize a heated steering wheel. And I don't have the ability, since that module came out of a different truck, to turn that heated steering wheel portion off. So that code's always going to be there. So it's kind of no harm, no foul. We know to expect it. Okay, so, and interesting enough, this barometric one, just for curiosity, if we go into that, and we go read fault codes, DTC information, barometric pressure, yeah, low or out of range. And so let me get you a little bit closer so you can kind of see that one. There we go. And again, that's just going to be due to the MAF sensor sending out a value that this truck was like, whoa, hey, I'm not supposed to get that value back. Matter of fact, just out of curiosity, if we go into read data stream, and let's see if we can find it. Barometric pressure. And do OK. So there we go. So it's reporting a 28.03 value. It's expecting anywhere between a 0 and a 73.75. So what's happening is the default value it's sending is not the default value that the truck is looking for just, you know, key on, engine off. But it does see it, which that's a good thing, because it reading a value right there. I'm sorry for the camera noise. I'm just getting your tripod readjusted. It's seeing a value off that data PID tells us that at least it sees that the sensor is connected and that their new sensor is functional. So awesome. So you see we got, let's see, let's go into, I think we looked at this one already, DMFL, yeah, ECU reset, battery low, lost communications. Like I said, there's a couple of different ways that you can go into this. I like that they added the topology map to this scan tool, because you can see what I just did there. If I could, for instance, I can go into this module here, which is the door module front right, and it says reset and battery low. Okay, that's fine. We don't care about any of that. So what we can do, since that health report looked good, I'll get that to go away. I'm just going to say clear DTCs. Yes. Key on, engine off, which is what we are right now. And we're just going to let that go through and clear them all out. Now, it'll clear it all out except for the barometric pressure one. That's more than likely going to come back pretty quickly, Matter of fact, yeah, as soon as it did. But it'll clear out the anomalous codes in the other modules with the exception of the heated seat module. Eventually, that one will throw the code about the heated steering wheel again, which, again, we know that to be a barometric low. So that barometric pressure one will go away once we get the flash from our tuner. Okay, so now that that looks good, we're just going to exit out of our scan tool for now. Okay. Good. Now, I'm going to pause you. I'm going to get the Diablo Trinity set up here next. And then we're going to go through it and see what we need to do in order to do a code read and save. Basically a backup of the configuration on this truck. And then that backup file is what we will send to the tuner. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, I'm trying to stay behind the camera and block as much of the incoming shop light as I can to cut down on the glare. But we've got our OBD2 cable plugged in from Trinity, and that just plugs into an HDMI looking port here on the side. And within a few moments, this should power up. And then we can go through this process. Now, obviously I haven't gone through the process on this truck, so you'll have to forgive me if I kind of fumble my way through this. We did have to buy a license for this to tune an additional vehicle, because this was also used on the 2009 that you saw us use earlier, in which we used it to disable the MDS. And even though it has its own tuner now, in order to get rid of that lock, you either have to call Diablo and get them to walk you through steps on how to do it, or you have to apply the base tune back to the original vehicle to unlock it, and then you can move it to somewhere else. Well, obviously I didn't call Diablo, and I don't have access to the original vehicle, nor would I ever take the base tune on this and revert it to that vehicle, because it has its own tuner now. So it's just kind of stuck that way. So I did opt just to purchase the additional license to allow us to do another vehicle. So if I remember correctly, I think we can go into tuning, and we're just looking to do a backup. Have you updated? Yes, we have updated. I did that this morning as part of getting everything set up. And what we want to go into is to do a backup. So if I go into tune vehicle, let's see, I don't want to go into any of this. Okay, that's modify stock tune. Not really interested in doing that. Skip this module. It's okay to return to the main menu. I think I actually have to go into this and tell it I'm going to change something, even though I won't, just to get it to do a backup. Yeah, that's settings for the device. Yeah, again, my apologies. I haven't used this particular version too often. So let me search this real quick. I know it's under tuning. I just don't want to inadvertently push a tune to this vehicle. But I mean, it's kind of safe in this aspect that it will back up the factory tune before we do anything. But what I want to do is just go in and do a straight backup. So let me bring it back. One moment. And welcome back. So if I recall correctly, if I'm looking at this correctly, we need to go into tuning. That'll go into the vehicle. And then we can say tune vehicle. And let's see here. Modify stock tune. Press continue to begin reading. So there we go. Now we're doing a backup. So we had to go into it like we were going to make a change, even though we're not. I just want it to read. And all the dinging you hear on the dash is because it's doing that read file right now. You can see our dash is lit up like a Christmas tree. It's kind of unhappy right now. Traction control, brindle display, looks like a Christmas tree. It says no bus. Okay, it says to turn the ignition off. Press screen to continue. Turn the ignition on. Now, I'm not going to start it, but I'll turn it to the on position. You can see it's exporting the backup file right now. Would you like to install the tune as is, or would you like to customize the tune? Let's see. We're going to go into customize. And again, I'm just looking to get it to allow me to exit now that we have our backup. So I'm just going to keep the tutorial at this point. And then we're going to back up again, and then we're going to exit. So we kind of went into it acting like we were going to do like just a modification of the stock tune, at least long enough to get a backup of the vehicle. Now, in order to get the backup file off of the vehicle, we got to download some software from Trinity in order to do the download from this device. And I'll bring you back for that piece. But now that we've got our backup file on there, I think we're done with this section of it. And then when I'll get the banks plugged in, and I'll bring you back for that piece. So one moment. And welcome back. So I got you zoomed in here. I've got the OBD2 connector that goes to all the banks gauges plugged in at this point. So I'm just going to power up. Key to the on position. We're going to see if our banks device powers up here. Well, that doesn't look encouraging. We've got no power. Let me see if that connector's all the way in. Oh, yeah, we know it's in. We know we're getting power from that port. Could be an issue with our Y splitter coming up to here. And there's an easy fix for that. We can just grab the cable and plug it straight in, bypassing the Y splitter. So let me do that next. Let me take it off the Y splitter and we'll plug in direct. So one moment. And welcome back. So we've taken off the Y splitter that you can see there. That's what we bought with the kit originally. And I'm going to see if that makes any difference. So far nothing. That's not good. Oh, there we go. Okay, I had to push the button, so we may be able to put the Y splitter back on this. That was interesting. So, let me get you in here. It wants to know the liters of this motor. So we want, that is in 2, 3, 4, 5. We go over 1. 5.7. Okay, there we go. It looked like it filled our CID number in for us. Okay, so if I back up one, oh, awesome, there we go. Okay, so I do need to loosen this up eventually and turn that because that gauge is slightly tilted. But you can see right now the default list, we are reading 70 degree on the temperature sensor, 13.8 in the battery voltage. Okay, so what we need to do is get back into the setup. There we go, menu. Okay, we are looking for gauge layout. Wake your screen up so I can see what you're seeing. And I think it was down here at the bottom. PedalMonster combo is what we're looking for. So there's our PedalMonster. And what we want to do is, so we've got RPM and max speed. I want to be able to modify this screen to display the sensors off of our other device. So it sees the PedalMonster, which is good. So if I do this, does it show? No, probably because it has not been. Uh-oh. Oh, we lost our power. Why did we lose our power? That's interesting. You can see it kind of fluctuating a little bit. Tell you what, I'm going to take that, I may take that battery maintainer off of this. And actually, okay, well, the flickering seems to have calmed down. So what I'm going to do is go forward. Okay. Gauge selection. That sounds like that's where we need to be. Okay. Field 1 RPM, field 2 EC2. So field 1, instead of it being RPM, category, diagnostics, engine performance, pressure, velocity, temperature, and what we are looking for that's PedalMonster. I don't want PedalMonster. Looking for the settings for our other device that we have installed. Pressure, speed, velocity, alternate density. No, it's not alternate density. Let's try group. Exhaust system, diagnostics, up, 4-channel module. Okay, so it was under group and then 4-channel module. And awesome. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I remember correctly, channel 1 we did fuel, and channel 2 we did pressure. So what we want is channel 1. So now that we have that set to group in channel 1, for field 2, we want this to be group, 4-channel module again. Instead we want module B. Okay. And now it looks like we've got an option for field 3. We don't really want necessarily temperature. Let's see, what else would have we got under group? Engine monitoring, vehicle dynamics, exhaust system, engine performance, intake conditions. Okay, so let's back up one. Let's go under category again. And let's see, what would we like to change that to? I'll tell you what we'll change it to. I just got to find it. See, that's speed and velocity. That may be what we want. Yeah, let's go speed and velocity. Okay, awesome. Okay, so engine RPM, we want vehicle speed. Okay. And before I go, I'm just going back into it. So we got channel A, channel B, and we got our vehicle speed in our third field. And we want to save custom page into page 1. Okay, got it. Perfect. So, channel 1 is 1.09 volts. Channel 2 is 4.34 volts. So, I'm going to have to look into that and see if, and then we got speed below. The reason why I put speed below is because we've got the older cluster that you can see here where you can't have speed in the center of it. And I know it's over here and it's a big dial that you could look at, but on the newer Chryslers I've gotten used to being able to just to kind of glance right dead center of the steering wheel, just glance down real quick and see it. At least with it being over here now, we can just kind of glance over to see it. Okay, so that's what was throwing me off. I'm gonna have to change that setting. I thought it was an issue with the Y cable. I apologize. It looks like this is just going to sleep after X number of minutes of inactivity. So let me poke with this and find out where that setting is to change it. I also want to see if we can change these from reading volts to the value, because I want the value of the sensor range, like 0 to whatever PSI and 0 to whatever PSI, and not the voltage value. So yeah, let me ping this. Let me ping this for a bit, and I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. So I'm going to show you what I found here. So if we go forward one, go to the menu. If we go into Banks Modules here, and then what we're looking for is the 4-channel analog that we put in. We're going to select that one. Channel A, select that one. And then if we go down where it says type voltage, select that one. And now you can see that we have pressure that we can send it to. Now you have a PSIA pressure and a PSIG pressure. I have to look it up and then kind of explain the difference on it. But let me ping on this because I gotta look this up again to refresh myself whether we want PSIA or PSIG. I think when I ordered the sensors they were PSIAs, but let me confirm that and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, I got you zoomed in here a little bit. I'm going to show you what I think where we left off. We were setting up and changing the values of these sensors. And I'm going to show you where I discovered all that. So if we just hit the right arrow here and go back in our main menu, and if we go down into Banks Modules, 4-channel analog, see one of them. That's the first one we want, the only one we have. So if we go in and configure channel 1, you see it's enabled. It was set to voltage, but if we select that value, we're going to set to pressure PSIA, because these are PSIA sensors. And on channel A, we know that's our fuel sensor. So we're going to come in here, change it to a 100 range of 100 PSIA. And we're going to back up, and we're going to do the same thing to channel B. We're going to say, it's going to reset that one value when I do this, but it's fine. Pressure, PSIA, because it was set to voltage. And this one, if you remember, is our boost gauge. It only has a 0 to 15 PSI range. So now that we have those set. So I'm going to back up. I'm also going to go into gauge selection. I'm going to put that one setting. I was in here playing. I'm going to change gauge selection field 3 of the menu that we're on, which is the PedalMonster menu. And I'm going to say category, back into speed and velocity, change that back to vehicle speed. Save that custom page as page 1. So now this page comes back and it kind of resets. So you see we have our channel A, which is our fuel pressure, and channel B, which will be our boost pressure. Now, PSI-A and PSI-G are a little bit different between the two. And this is a section out of the 4-channel analog module, or manual, install manual. And you'll notice PSI-A says that it is compatible with both air and liquid, recommended for air pressure measurements that go into vacuum. Which is why I selected this, because that one sensor, the 0 to 15, is potentially going to see manifold vacuum. So I basically just ordered both sensors as PSI-A. And PSI-A actually stands for, in case you're curious, yes, and I did have to Google this, which is, PSI-A stands for pounds per square inch absolute. Absolute pressure is pressure relative to 0 or absolute vacuum. The other sensor they sell is a PSI-G, which stands for pounds per square inch gauge. Gauge pressure is pressure relative to atmospheric pressure. So we're using sensors that are relative to, basically, relative to 0 or absolute vacuum. So they're going to read a bit weird right now, which I would expect, because again, there's only atmospheric pressure currently, and that one's almost maxed out at 15. That one's reading 48. Now I expect these values should update and kind of start reading a little bit correctly again with relative to absolute vacuum once we get actually the vehicle running, because obviously there's no manifold vacuum or positive pressure right now. It's just atmospheric. Same thing with fuel. Fuel rail is completely empty, so there should just be, it may be slightly different than atmospheric pressure depending on the fuel vapor of the tank, but it's neither here or there. So we've got our screen set up. So we've got our PedalMonster. The only thing we haven't done is a calibration on the PedalMonster, and you'll notice if I can switch it, I can switch it. You notice it gets mad at me. Like there's stock, it'll get mad at me again. See, it won't let me go beyond that because we haven't calibrated the PedalMonster. But I think if I go forward, go back into here, go into Banks modules again. This time we want the PedalMonster. And right here, we're looking for where it says calibration incomplete. If we select that one, proceed to calibrate, yes. Depress gas pedal completely. Let's do that. There you go. That is complete. And we're going to say yes. Release gas pedal completely. Done. Okay. Depress gas pedal completely again. Release. Success. I was hitting OK there, and I probably didn't need to. But you can see that we are now calibrated. Yeah, I'm sorry if the focus is just all over. I'm trying to get you in here where you can see this at the same time. It is, I don't want to say kind of a small menu. It's easy to see when you're sitting in the truck, but I'm not sure what you're seeing through the viewfinder. So now if we go back, now we can go in the city. And we can bump it up. You can see we got various levels of each one. So there's our stock, nothing at all. And if we bump this up and keep bumping it up, it'll go to sport, from city to sport to track. Yeah, you don't want to, probably don't want to drive around your city in track mode. That could be very bad. So if we go back down, sport, and what we're going to do for now, we're just going to leave this set to a stock level. Obviously, until we get a feel for things and kind of a little bit of understanding better of what's going on. But just to show you some other stuff that we can kind of come in here and change is that if we come into, I think it was under settings, and screen and button, underneath screen auto dim, I turned it off so it wouldn't auto dim it. And I did change the brightness. You can change the screen brightness to your liking. See, that's the button. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's button lighting. I don't want button lighting. I'm down too low. You probably saw that in the camera. So there, I got the screen brightness about as bright as it'll go. But we can come down here and even do something like this. You see the yellow arrows are red? Changing blue, cyan, magenta. You got a lot of color options to kind of for your preference. So inside the settings, there's a lot. There's your layout, theme colors. See, the background is black right now, so I think we'll leave the background black. Labels are blue. Your text is white. I think I'm good with those. The buttons are red by default, which is fine by me. I think for that, we'll just kind of leave that well enough alone until we get a little bit more into it. But you've got a lot of customization. It looks like you can set alerts on this particular one. Min-max logging, because we do have the iDash, so we can do logging when we get up to that point. We've got data logging. We've got diagnostics. Now, for the diagnostics, if I remember correctly, this is where it can read for PIDs. So vehicle diag. Yep, check vehicle codes. And this is where it kind of acts a little bit like a scan tool as well. It should come back once it's done and tell us any codes we have in the system. We should have at least one for the heated seat module and one for barometric pressure. So let's see, yep, you see that one right there, the P0129 barometric pressure. And what else we have here? Oh wow, pulled up a bunch of data PIDs, which is nice. Yep, battery gives you all the stats of, it looks like, what the snapshot of the environment was when it took it. So there's your intake manifold pressure, your barometric one that we saw in the scan tool. And again, there's everything it was doing, like it was running an open loop, and your fuel trims and your map, basically a data snapshot of what the conditions of the engine was when that particular code set. So you can even clear vehicle codes from here. Check emission readiness. That is a cool option to have if you're in a city like I am, where you have to get an annual emissions inspection. Looks like we can just quickly come into here, and there you go. There's all your monitors. You know, have the monitors run, have the monitors not run, and you can see that mill status, which is on. And the reason why the mill is on is because that barometric pressure sensor is throwing a fault code. Again, that'll go away when we get it tuned, but you can see the various oxygen sensors, the evaporative canister, the catalyst, and the other components that have not run yet. That is really, really cool. So let's just go back out of this. And looks like you also had, just to show it to you, you also had diagnostics in there to check out the CAN, the 4-channel analog, and the PedalMonster. So if we go in the 4-channel analog one, okay, yep, no faults found. Module temperature 250.2 degrees. I think that might be a little bit off. I don't think it's quite 250 degrees in there, but it seems to think so. What about the PedalMonster? Any faults there? Yep, no faults found. Module temperature 98 degrees. I don't know. Maybe that 4-channel analog runs a little hot. But anyway, that was it. Down dirty nutshell. We've got this calibrated to the engine. We got the PedalMonster calibrated. We're using the PedalMonster screen, except we've just made changes to add the fuel pressure on channel A, boost pressure on channel B, and then we've used the third slot here to just at least show our speed. And we can change that to one of the other channels once they're active, or we can change that to another particular value that the banks will pull from the ECU, or should pull from the bus, aka the ECU and or another module. And we can now switch between the different levels of the PedalMonster. So what I'm going to do next is, now that we, sorry, I wanted to show you this other thing that I was playing with on the screen. I believe this was under settings. And then, was it under screen and button? No, it wasn't under screen and button. I found sensitivity level. Yeah, I didn't change anything with the sensitivity level. No, that's not. Apologies. I am looking for. Yeah, wake up sensitivity. Other settings. I came down to shutdown type. I changed it from standard to hybrid, and basically told it start, stop, engine. I'm going to change that back to, I changed that, I'm going to research, I'm going to change it back to standard, and let it go from there, because we don't have, I thought originally that would help it, like when you put the key on the ignition, that it would power up. And I think what that's telling, you're telling the iDash, what you're telling Banks is that you have a vehicle that does auto start stop. So this is aware that the engine will stop itself and start itself. So I'm going to change that back to manual. Wake up sensitivity, it's set to high right now. I didn't change that. And calibrate ambient light. I did do the calibrate ambient light under this setting just so it would kind of better help with a little bit of the flickering that we saw, because it was in the garage light and we have LED lighting in here. It did seem to help that. Also for the shutting down, again, it looks like once it goes dormant for long enough and not receiving any data input, it seems to kind of put itself to sleep until you push a button. I did find that it will wake up when you put the key in the ignition, provided that you've given enough time to rest. I did find that if you turn the key off, and as soon as that goes to sleep and turn the key back on, it doesn't necessarily wake up each time on its own right away. But if I shut the key off, let the vehicle go to sleep, and then turn the key on, then that will wake itself up. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put this Y adapter back into play, and we're going to see that it powers up now that I know that the reason why it wasn't powering up at first was because I didn't push a button on the iDash. I don't think it's the fault of the Y adapter, but we're going to test it. So let me get that put back in, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see, I'm just going to push on the gas pedal here lightly so you can see that. Yep. You can see we got movement. You can see the bus. So that is with the Y adapter wired back into the system. So again, the Y adapter was fine. It was just not knowing that I had to push a button on there to get it to kind of wake itself up. So awesome. So with that being said, I'm going to put this side piece of trim panel, we'll neaten the wires back up, kind of get them shoved back here in their cubby hole. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you back, and we're going to see what it's going to take to get our tune file off of our Trinity device there. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, there wasn't much to show on the Trinity. What I was reading inadvertently earlier was just an old forum post. They don't do it that way anymore. You don't need an additional piece of software. What happens is when you plug the Trinity, or at least this particular Trinity EX, into the USB port on the back, and it boots up, it maps a drive letter on the machine, and the drive letter on the machine, to show that to you here, gives you a directory, and inside the directory is called tunes, and inside the tunes will be the backup file that it makes of your existing configuration. So again, just to review that one, we hooked it up. We went into it like we were going to modify the stock, go into the tunes, acted like we were going to modify the stock tune just to get it to do the initial backup, and then we kind of backed out of everything. And then I'll take that file is what I'll send over to my tuner for him to make his adjustments to. We also covered the iDash, setting the iDash up to use the PedalMonster screen, customized the PedalMonster screen to, forgive me, there's one of the neighbors is honking like crazy for whatever reason, distracting me. But we set the PedalMonster screen up on the iDash to utilize the sensor output for our fuel rail, our boost pressure, and then we set the third option just to be vehicle speed. And of course we can obviously, as you saw, manipulate that menu into however we want it to look. So at this point in the progress, the only thing we're waiting on is for me to send the tune file off to the tuner and get said file back and do the upload. So when we bring you back, we'll do the upload. And then we'll put, like I said, we'll put a couple fresh gallons of fuel in a fuel tank, and then we'll prep this for first start. So first start sequence on this will go kind of like, we'll leave the fuel pump fuse out, but we'll obviously reattach the command lead to the starter. We're going to turn the engine over a few times until we see oil pressure. We want to see oil pressure first. Then we'll re-enable our fuel pump, pressurize our fuel rail, check for fuel leaks, and then we'll give it a go. But for now, I think that'll cover it, and I'll definitely bring you back for the next one. It might be a little bit of a wait until we get our tune file back, but with that being said, if you have subscribed, I thank you immensely. If not, please consider doing so. We are running fast past that 2,000 subscriber goal, and it is awesome to see. Yes, and as you can see over here, we've just got our battery on charge because we've been in and out of the truck and turning on the ignition, off the ignition for a little bit while we were kind of troubleshooting everything. So we're just getting our angry pixies all charged up and rested and ready to go for that initial start. With that being said, I've rambled on long enough. I will call it on this one, and I will bring you back for the next one. But if you can think of any questions as far as the stuff on the anything as far as this project, but especially on the banks or the iDash or the PedalMonster, feel free to put them in the comment box below. And then when we get this bad boy back on the road, we can definitely look into testing and looking into specific items that you might want to see. With that being said, I'll let you go. Bring you back for the next one. Talk to you later.